Well, happy November 3rd. By the time that we post this video, this is the election day. And so we can both sit here as prophets and predict who is going whose name is going to be in the role of President of the United States. But I'm here with Pastor Luke Benjamin. My name is Joel Tooley. I'm the mobilizer for the Southeast area, Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. And I work with Bibles, Badges, and Business and do a lot of consulting work with the Evangelical Immigration Table and the National Immigration Forum. And here we are, two pastors from Florida. Pastor Luke, you are pastoring in the Jacksonville area. And this is an unusual day for us as we wait the outcome that millions of Americans have been waiting for and exercising their votes for. But tell us a little bit about you and your journey. And you've not always lived in the United States. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you are today.
Well, thank you for having me on, Joel. Thank you so much. I always say I feel underqualified to do these interviews because I feel like I'm a nobody. But hey, I believe God has given me a unique perspective on certain things because of my upbringing. So my name is Luke. I'm the pastor of New Dimensions Church in Jacksonville, Florida. This is my second year here, and this is my first church pastoring alone, a senior pastor. My dad is also a pastor. His name is Ronald Benjamin, and we were born in Jamaica, the island of Jamaica. So I'm not American originally. I did, however, gain my citizenship earlier on, probably about 10 years ago. But we were in Jamaica. My dad being a pastor, that's where I was born. I have one other brother, a younger brother. He's going to get his doctorate, actually going to be a medical doctor in a few months. And from Jamaica, my dad was a part of the Wesleyan Holiness Church, and they assigned their pastors to where they should go. So after that pastorate in Jamaica, we moved to the Cayman Islands. And so we immigrated there and stayed there for about a few years. He pastored a church. And then after that, we moved to the Bahamas, and we lived there for a while, and we pastored and ministered in that area. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, filed for us to come to America because she was here. And so we were able to come to America in 2000. And we went from Bahamas to the amazing city of New York City.
I want to interrupt you just for a second because, for a lot of people who might be watching this interview are maybe folks who've gone on a cruise before, and you just listed off all the great spots for cruise destinations, but it's interesting. I don't imagine that the typical Jamaican, or what are the folks that are from Grand Cayman or Cayman Islands? What is their nationality called?
Caymanians.
Caymanians, okay. Or certainly Bahamians. I don't know that any of them necessarily get caught up in the glitz of the cruise life. But do you remember, what were some of the memories that you have of growing up in the islands, and some of those things that you cherish?
I think it was what people assume is what it was. The church that my dad was a part of in the Cayman Islands was literally across the street from the beach. And we had a parsonage on the property. And so my day really consisted of going to the beach, fishing, and then coming back for church. And so that was a normal day in the Cayman Islands. In the Bahamas also, we were probably about a mile away from a resort beach. And so, every day was the beach, man. Every day was the beach. Every day was fun. Every day was the sun. That's what I remember as a kid. And so it's kind of unfortunate now because I'm married to an American, and when she wants to go on vacation, I don't want to go to the beach anymore. I'm beached out. I'd rather go to the mountains or to the desert or something like that.
So your family landed in New York, and what happened from there?
Well, my dad, it wasn't an assignment like the other situations from a church. It was just my grandmother filing for us to come up. And so my dad had to get a normal job. I think he worked with a flooring company. But while he was there, we got plugged into the Nazarene Church. And after a while, he became the associate pastor of Bronx Bethany, just the Church of the Nazarene in the Bronx. And so we were there for a few years. And my mom, she's also a nurse. So she worked in the hospital. I went to college and got my degree in radiology. So I was doing X-ray technology also. So yeah, it was a really interesting time. A lot of culture shock when we first came up, the differences in the culture, but it was awesome.
And do you remember the immigration process for you? I mean, you were younger, so was that a stressful time for your family, or was that something that just kind of moved with fluidity? What was that like for your family's experience?
It was, I remember it being stressful because I was maybe 16, 17 at the time. I remember it being stressful because my father went up to New York before us. And so we were living in Jamaica at the time, my mother, my brother, and I. And we were staying there while he was trying to find a job, trying to find a place to live, all these different things. And so it was stressful. I mean, we went from living in a parsonage to actually living in somebody's basement in New York. So it was a major shift.
Yeah.
So from having multiple cars to being in New York with a small red sports car. And if you can imagine, I'm 6'3", my dad is 6'3", my brother is 6'6", small, this big family in this small red sports car. But this was the beginnings of something that we wanted to be here. And so I saw my dad work as hard as he could. Eventually we were able to buy a house, buy different cars, but it was stressful in the beginning. It was.
And you talked a little bit about this, your educational background in the medical field. What was that? How has that moved in your life to the point where, I mean, now you're in pastoral ministry? Are you working just for the church? Are you bivocational? What does that look like for you?
Well, I'm not bivocational, sorry. I'm working just for the church now. When I first came down to Orlando, where my dad's church was, and I was working with him, I was bivocational. I was in the X-ray field as well as doing the pastorate. So it's speaking about it, we see a lot of people who come in from immigration in that field because we worked with dialysis patients on who had diabetes, many different patients that needed fistulas and all these different medical procedures. So we did see a lot of patients that were from other countries.
And that speaking of immigrants that come with the immigrant or with the medical background, I mean, these days, especially in light of quarantine and coronavirus and the ongoing fight against COVID-19, we've seen a lot of attention being given towards our frontline workers. And so many of the nurses and technicians and medical doctors are folks who've had either their training in other countries or they're foreign born themselves. And I think we have a valuable gift in this country because we are seeing some really sharp folks from different parts of the world. I think also during the same time, we're dealing with some of the complexities of the racial tension that's impacted our nation. And how have you seen that impacting your context where you're at in Jacksonville, either as a person of color or even as an immigrant? How does that play out for you?
Yeah, it's very complicated in my situation because coming from a different country where I'm not American, especially within the Black community or the African American community, if you're not African American, you're not seen as within the group. So there's this sense of alienation that I experienced. I don't know if anybody else felt that, but I experienced a sense of alienation from the African American group because I was not considered African American. And so there's this tension that, and also because I didn't grow up within America, certain things that African Americans experience as maybe being racist or biased, it was hard for me to see it like that because I didn't grow up in that context. And so my wife being an African American and her family being African American, she really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I would have to start to look at, and say, maybe that is racist. Or for example, if we were taken into a restaurant and we were seated in the back. To me, that wouldn't raise any flags at all. But to her, she would say, do you see what they just did? And I'd be like, I don't get it. And at first I didn't believe it, but then after a while I started to see most of the time it's innocent, but there are some times that it is done intentionally. And that's something I had to come to grips with, that there are some people, because the stereotype is that African Americans don't tip, and so they'll put them in the back or at somebody else's table because that's what the stereotype is. And I started to learn that after being in America for a while, where I came from a country where race was not really an issue. And so I was kind of blinded to that truth. But it's there, and I'm learning.
So how has that, in what ways have you now as a pastor, have you been able to engage in these conversations? And how have you seen your voice being used in the midst of this?
Yeah, I think with my perspective, I'm able to offer grace to both sides. It's very rare that somebody is intentionally trying to be biased to another person. But I think with our backgrounds and our upbringings, that's not what we think normally. And so I'm able to be on the side, on both sides in a way where I can speak to an African American and show them how to offer grace to an American who may be white. And I'm also able to speak to a white American and show them how or why certain African Americans feel a certain way that they do. I'm able to be able to straddle the fence. I think it's because I was not brought up in that system, and I came in from as an outsider, able to witness things that happen, able to witness thought processes, able to witness how people interpret interactions. And I'm able to shed some light on what some people may not see because they're so entrenched in either system. You understand what I'm saying? It's
Yeah, that's you. Not only do you bring both the ethnic diversity into this, and you have I would call it a binational family, that you have this different perspective to balance each other out, even in the quiet of your home. But I think also you coming from a home where you've both been invested in the secular work world, so you've had to navigate life outside of church conversation. Honestly, people that grow up in a bubble of a church environment or any environment where you speak to the same kind of people all the time, you can become very unaccustomed to what other people are experiencing. But you've definitely been conditioned to be in that pivotal place to kind of navigate the complexities of, like you said, both sides of the conversation. I'm intrigued though, like, because Jacksonville is, well, tell folks a little bit about what stands out about Jacksonville, Florida. What makes this city unique in the US, but also in our state?
Well, within Jacksonville, it's known as the largest, by land mass, the largest city in America, actually. It's huge. It's a lot of land, a lot of space. Within the immigration aspect of it, what I've been seeing is that because we're so far north, we don't experience as much of an influx of immigration as, say, a Miami or Orlando or a Tampa, but we are significantly growing in terms of our immigration population. The majority of the immigrants are from Europe and Vietnamese and within the Asian countries. Second to them, there are the Dominicans and the Latin Americans. So we're almost a little bit behind Orlando and those places, but we're slowly starting to catch up. And one of the things that I noticed about Jacksonville and what I've read is that immigrants within Jacksonville are more likely to become entrepreneurs than any other place in Florida. And the reason behind that is because of the affordable housing here. The cost of living is not as high as Orlando or Tampa or Miami. So an immigrant is able to come here and actually thrive, even more so than the locals who live here. And that's one of the things that they project in about probably 5 or so years, that the majority of people who have degrees and who own businesses will be foreign-born people in Jacksonville. So it's a great place for opportunity, especially for those who are not born in America. There are many immigrants that have businesses here. There's a lot of housing, there's a lot of space, there's a lot of opportunities here for people who are not born within this country. So I think that stands out a little more than other areas in Florida.
So what, like, in as a leader in your community, then you obviously have some concerns about how those communities are impacted by, let's say, like law enforcement. Does law enforcement have a good relationship in the immigrant community or even the African American community where your church is positioned?
Yeah, I believe they do. Where our church is, it's really a half and half situation where it's half African American and half white. So the our church would probably be more geared towards a multi-ethnic church because of our situation. But from what I've seen and from what I've interacted with the police officers, they do have a good relationship with the people in the neighborhood. They're able to come by our church all the time and we speak sometimes. And so it's there's a good relationship there. My wife, who is a teacher in the school within the area, she's starting to realize that within the school there's a growing Hispanic population because of that the area that we're in, which is North Jacksonville. Not a lot of people are there, and so there's a lot of opportunity for growth. There's a lot of opportunity for housing, and so the Spanish population within our school is growing and growing, and so there's opportunities there where people can interact. There's even some of the students who have not been able to speak English yet. So there's opportunities to speak English there. But this is a brand new, I wouldn't say problem, it's a brand new situation for the school and brand new situation for this area because it's such a new situation for Jacksonville, especially North Jacksonville.
How's your Spanish?
Muy malo.
Well, there you go. You're on a roll at least. It's fascinating to see how communities respond to the shifting populations that emerge throughout time, and I'm excited for you because you've been in this place for less than 2 years, right around 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years, yep.
I saw on Facebook this week that your community, your church community, has kind of launched into a new venture just to establish some new relationships. How do you see the role of not just, I mean, you're a pastor, so obviously the church, but how do you see the role of the schools and the churches and different leaders in the community having this intersection of connection in your community? And what do you see your role in that?
I believe as a pastor, my role is to reveal that the love of Christ causes us and allows us to be family. You know, the Bible says we are brothers and sisters in Christ, and to really be able to show what the love of Christ looks like when we're all connected by the Holy Spirit. I did a sermon a few months ago, which talks about the fact that if we are in Christ, I see you as my brother, even more so than my actual family, you know, like blood brother, because we're connected by a blood that is a lot stronger, the blood of Christ. And so I believe that we have this great opportunity to reveal what the true love of Christ looks like, what the true family of Christ looks like, what it looks like to care about each other, regardless of race, background, language barrier, that it's possible. And I think America especially is a great place to show that truth because of the multi-ethnic makeup of this country. So I think we have a great opportunity. I think also the schools have this awesome opportunity to expose our children to many different cultures. You know, unfortunately, especially within the poorer neighborhoods, they're not exposed to a lot at all. You know, some of them have probably never left their block ever. And so being able to now see someone who does not look like them and to see how, even though we may be different on the outside, that we are all connected, we're all the same. I think that's a great opportunity for the schools and for the community to actually see that we're human and we're just like each other.
You had an event this last weekend with over the Halloween weekend that brought people to your church community where people could kind of outside could meet some folks and receive some gifts. And how do you see that as is that a stepping stone for what's next? Is that something you're going to do annually? Like, what are some of the dreams and visions now that you have for your community that you've kind of taken that stab at things?
I believe that we're going to be doing this annually. It was awesome to see the different cultures that came out. We had some Hispanics come out, we had white come out, we had black come out, we had people with Biden stickers and people with Trump stickers. But what's awesome is that we got to pray with every single one of them. You know, there was this connecting thread that binded us all together, and it was through prayer, because we gave out candy, but we also had a section that we can pray for the families. And when they came through, every family had something that they can pray for. Every family said something that was on their heart. And I believe what we were able to do was show that through Christ, we can be connected. Regardless of political party, regardless of what's going on, we can be connected through the power of prayer and through what God has done for us on the cross. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us. And I believe we're going to be doing it every year because, yeah, we don't want to be known as the black church or the white church. We want people to see that all are welcome. All are welcomed, and we can all be family in the family of God.
So before we wrap up our time together, I want to know, having gone through the journey as an immigrant and living in the U.S. for a number of years now, and now you've got raising your own family. Where do you see hope for immigrants in America these days?
Where do I see hope? I read an article a few days ago where an immigrant from Bosnia was talking about her experience in Jacksonville. She was able to come over to Jacksonville and actually open up her own grocery store. And she said, I'm actually living the American dream. And I recently just purchased a house with my family, and this was something that I didn't think would happen, you know, coming from where I'm coming from. And so I believe that there is hope, as we say, the American dream. There is hope. But I think that what's even a greater hope is the fact that we can now share the love of Christ and share the gospel to many different cultures and many different ethnic groups. That we don't, it used to be us going out to the world, but now they're coming to us. And so it's kind of like God has made it even easier for us to share the gospel. And so I think there's hope in the fact that we are now able to share the good news of Christ with many different people from many different backgrounds without even leaving our city. So I think that's a great opportunity for us.
And I appreciate you saying that, because I found, even in my context, my friends who are of a different faith or of no faith find that people who are living in an authentic relationship with this Jesus that we teach about, we profess, you know, if we live a life of compassion and love amongst those who, like I said, are of a different faith or of no faith, it first of all speaks of credibility of this thing that we say we are, but also it gives us a notion that this community, this neighborhood, this country does have hope, that we can be peace builders, we can be people who showed respect and dignity to all.
I mean, one of the greatest things I've seen, I work with a church that has a food bank, and on the days that they give out the food pantry, there's a Muslim family that comes in to get the food. And this is at a church. And we're not, you know, sharing the gospel verbally, but they are able to see that we love them, that we're taking care of them, that we don't show them any less affection than the other people because they have their burqas on. No, we love them. And this is tangible evidence of the love of Christ, where we're able to now serve them in a way that they see us as Christians the way that we're supposed to be seen, you know, being the light and the salt of the earth. And so I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, Luke, I'm really thankful for our time together, and thanks for sharing your story. And, you know, in the days ahead, as you get more and more accustomed to your community, there's going to be a time where you need to take a break and you need to go on a vacation somewhere. Maybe you're not going to go to the Cayman Islands. Maybe you'll go to Iowa instead. There's lots of beautiful places in this country to explore with your family, and we wish you well. And Thank you again, and God bless you. Thanks for being with.
Thank you. I just want to say something really quick before. As an American now, I now see the importance of voting. Like today is election day, or whenever you watch this, but it's election day, and that's something I didn't see before. I didn't see or understand why voting was important. But especially as a Black man, and my wife being an African American, and she explained to me what people went through in order for us to be able to vote, that I can't take that for granted. I can't take that opportunity lightly. And so one of the things that may be hard for immigrants is to actually care about who's in office, because sometimes even though we may be American, we still have our ties to our country. We still have our loyalty and want to know what's going on back home. And so whatever is happening in America sometimes doesn't affect us, but we now have the opportunity to allow our voices to be heard. We have the opportunity to actually create change on the local level and on a bigger scale. And especially as an American who's a Black American, this is something that people fought for. This is something that people died for. And so I've shifted my focus, shifted my attitude about voting. And now I see it as a great gift and a great privilege. And I believe that every person who comes to this country and who has the opportunity to vote should do so, because it's a great opportunity that we get to partake in as people who are a part of the greatest country in the world. You know?
And I think just to build onto that is not just voting in this once every 4 years election, but in every election that comes in your local community. And I would even urge people to say your voice has an impact, and maybe you would consider running for a local office at some point, your school board or county commission or something like that, where you have a stronger influence. And some of I think the most dynamic leaders in our local government are folks who are foreign born and bring a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
So good word. I'll vote for you, Luke, okay?
Oh, boy.
All right, well, thanks so much for spending time with us. And it's been great talking immigration with you. Have a great day.